Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Connolly, and behind the camera I have my friends Tiffany and Jeanette helping me out, controlling all the magic that you see behind me, but also monitoring our text and our email line. So this program is happening live at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're watching at that time, feel free to text us at this phone number that is on the screen here, which is 562-286-1838. Or you can email us at live@lbaop.org. And Tiffany will be monitoring those. So if you have any questions you'd like to send in, any observations you want to share when I'm asking you to make observations, we're always happy to hear from you. We love getting those questions or observations. And Tiffany will be watching those, and then she'll let me know if we have questions or observations we can share and talk about together during this program. But if you're watching this at a later time, you can still feel free to email us. We will always get back to you maybe at a later time, but we're always happy to hear from you. We want to know what you think or what you have questions about when you're watching along at home. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Today's topic is a type of animal that we call invertebrates. Maybe you saw the name of this program is called No Bones, No Problem. It kind of gives you a clue as to what this word might mean that Tiffany just threw up for us. But the word here is invertebrate. Have you ever heard that word before? Make a guess, make a hypothesis. What does the word invertebrate make you think of? Are there any words within it that you maybe recognize? I know that I've learned in our back, we have some things that we call vertebrae. They make up our spine. And there's a word kind of in this that's similar, right? You see the word vertebrate there. So a vertebrate is an animal that has a backbone, that has those vertebrae. So I'm a vertebrate, you're a vertebrate, your pet is probably a vertebrate if you have like a cat or a dog or a reptile. But today we're talking about a different kind of animal called an invertebrate. So instead of a vertebrate, we have that first part of the word there, in, which means that it doesn't have the vertebrae. It doesn't have any bones in its body. So these animals are pretty different from us, right? Let's think about, why do we have a skeleton? Why do we have a backbone? What are some things that having a skeleton or having a backbone let us do? Can you share maybe with someone in the room, or what are some things that you know that having a skeleton can help you do? Yeah, right? It can help us to move. It can help us to give our body structure. The reason I'm able to stand up right now is because I have bones in my body and I have a backbone to give me structure, right? It's also allowing me to move my hands. It's allowing me to move my mouth. My jaw is a bone as well, right? So all of these things in our body are really important to us for our daily life. But the animals that we have today do not have bones in their body, so they have to survive kind of in some different ways. So Tiffany has put up a picture behind me of one of our places you can visit. It's called Coastal Corner, and you can actually touch a bunch of different invertebrates here. So let me step off for a second so we can look at Coastal Corner, and let's make some observations about what we see. All right, so what are you noticing? What did you see in this picture? Also, I apologize, we got some feedback that my mic was a little staticky. Let me know if it's sounding better now. But what did you observe in this? Did you notice that these animals kind of look different than us, right? Did you notice that they don't really seem to have any bones? So there's a word that we use for these special things that animals have on their body to help them survive. We call them adaptations. Can you say that word? Adaptations, yeah, right? So adaptations is just the fancy scientific word we use to talk about things an animal has on its body to help it survive, right? So one of them could be bones. For us, bones are an adaptation, right? They help us to have structure in our bodies, to move around, just like we talked about before. Can you think of another adaptation that we have on our bodies as humans? What's something on your body that you use every day to help you survive? What do you think? How can we eat? We use our mouth, right? We also use our hands. We don't just eat our food directly from with our face, right? We got to use our hands to help us get it there. Fingers, all of these things are adaptations on our body that help us survive. But different animals have different ones to help them out. So let's talk a little bit about some of these adaptations of invertebrates, or the animals without any bones. So the first animal that I want to talk about is one that maybe might come to mind right off the top of your head when you hear the word no bones. It's very, very squishy. Do you have any guesses what it could be? Oh, there it is. This is a jelly, or this one in particular is a moon jelly, right? And you probably have known this animal to be called a jellyfish. But let's think about that word a little bit, right? We talked about, today we're learning about animals with no bones in their body. Invertebrates, they don't have any bones. And this animal is an example of that, right? Our jellies, if you've ever touched one here or at another aquarium, you probably know that they're super, super squishy, right? So if we call them jellyfish, well, fish are actually animals that do have bones in their body. Maybe if you've ever eaten a piece of fish before and you maybe get a little bone or a rib in there, you definitely know, right? Fish have bones in their body. So if we call these animals jellyfish, it's kind of not a good name for them, right? They're not fish at all, and they don't even have bones in their body. So instead, you'll hear me call them jellies or sea jellies. So we have a video playing behind me. Let me move out so we can see our moon jellies in all their glory. What do you notice about these animals? Let's make some observations. So they definitely don't have any bones. We can see them kind of floating around here. They look super kind of squishy. What else do you notice? How do you see them moving? Are they walking around like a human? Are they swimming back and forth like a shark? No, they're kind of moving a little bit differently, right? So we use this word bell to describe that top kind of round part of the jelly. So maybe if you look at our jelly that's swimming by right there, that top part that's nice and round that doesn't have the tentacles hanging down, we call that part the bell. So if we look at the bell of the jelly, you'll see as they are moving, they're kind of pulsing that bell back and forth, right? They're not swimming like a fish. They don't have a tail to help kind of move them through the water, but they can kind of pulse that bell, and that's how they're moving through the water. So a little bit different, right, than other animals because they don't have bones to help them move around. All right, what else do we notice about the jelly? We talked about how we have bones in our mouth, our skull, that allows us to eat. But I don't even really see a mouth on this jelly, do you? How do you think that this jelly can eat? And how can it get its food? It definitely doesn't have any hands. What do you think? Make a prediction about how you think this animal, our moon jelly, could eat some food. Do you see something else on its body that you think it could use to help get its food instead? If you were thinking that maybe you noticed those kind of long parts on the bottom of the jelly, like those ones right there, that they might use those to eat, you'd be correct. So our jellies have what we call tentacles. We can see them really well in this picture. These really long, kind of skinny ones, we call those the tentacles. And they have the stinging cells on them that allow our jellies to grab their food. So even though they don't have hands or arms like us, right, to help them eat, they can actually sting. So they have a special adaptation that we don't have to help them get their food, to eat their prey. So they can use those tentacles to sting their prey. Then I noticed there's also kind of those ones more towards the inside right here that look kind of fluffy. They kind of look like a ribbon. Did you notice those too? They look kind of different from the other ones, right? So maybe they do something different as well. And in fact, we call these the oral arms of the jelly. And they use those. Oh, here's a beautiful picture where we can see those nice oral arms. They use those to help them bring that food into their digestive system, into kind of their stomachs, after they have stung it with the tentacles on the outside of the bell. So they eat very differently than us, but they still have some cool adaptations to allow them to survive. All right, so we've gotten to explore our jelly friend a little bit, learned about some of the adaptations of this invertebrate. Do you think that all of our invertebrates look like jellies? Or maybe you already know off the top of your head that there are some other invertebrates that look kind of different, right? Let's check out another invertebrate. Ooh, let's see. We're back at one of our videos here of our Surge channel with a bunch of different animals all in here. Do you notice a different invertebrate in this video? There's a few different ones here, but the one that I see is there's a bunch of them laying all over the rocks. Do you know what we call that animal? Yeah, it's a sea star, right? I wonder if we can take a closer look at our sea star. There we go. So we have a bunch of, these are called bat stars, that are all hanging out in this picture. And you'll remember, just like I talked about earlier with me saying a sea jelly instead of a jellyfish, our sea star is also an invertebrate, right? It's not a fish. It does not have any bones in its body. So you'll hear me calling it a sea star instead of a starfish. But back to our sea stars. So we can see them all hanging out here in a little pile. What do you notice about our sea stars? Do they look really soft and squishy like our jellies? I think they kind of look a little different. They don't really look as squishy. They look like maybe they have a little more structure in their bodies, but they still don't have any bones, right? Remember we said these are all invertebrates, no bones in their body, but that doesn't mean that they have to be super, super squishy, right? So we can see our sea stars here. Why are they called a sea star? Maybe that was the first observation that you noticed we can kind of make together. Why are they called a sea star? Yeah, right? They have those arms that make them look like the shape of a star. How many arms do they have? Can we count them together? Oh, here's a good picture. Yeah, we can see, right? They have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But if we go back to that other picture, I noticed there was one kind of hiding in the corner that maybe had a different number than 5. Can you spot it? Do you see the sea star that doesn't have 5 arms? Yeah, it's over here, right? Right in the top corner, this one right here. It actually has 6 arms. Why do you think our sea star could have 6 arms? Has to do with a cool adaptation that our sea stars have. So our sea stars can actually regrow one of their arms. So sometimes instead of growing one back, or when they're kind of developing, they might have 6 instead of 5, or sometimes even more than that. Pretty cool. So that's an adaptation they have to allow them to survive, right? It allows them to regenerate, to regrow a part of their body if they lose it. But let's go back to that other picture that Tiff was showing us, where we can see those beautiful arms of the sea star. There we go. And right now we're looking at the underside of the sea star, the bottom. So the other picture was kind of like the top. They're all hanging out on the rocks. This one is a sea star that was up against the glass or the acrylic, so we could see a nice viewing of what they look like from below. What do you notice about the sea star? Can you make some observations? It's looking a little different than the top, right? What do you notice about the sea star from below? Did anyone notice those weird little dot things in all of the arms? That was the first thing that got my attention, right? So all of the arms have these little kind of dots or suction cup looking things along them. And these are what we call the sea star's tube feet. What do we think that the tube feet could be helpful for? Here's a really good video of those tube feet in action. What do you see the sea star doing with them? I notice it's kind of moving them a little bit, right? How is it able to stick onto this rock? What is it using to stick onto the rock? The tube feet, right? So we can see they're called tube feet because they're the feet of the sea star, and they're all of these little tubes. And they work kind of like little suction cups. So we can see them in action right now. And the sea star can move all of their little tube feet to allow them to grab onto stuff, to stick to a rock or a wall, and to kind of also move around along the seafloor, right? So, here's a really good video of our sea star moving. So we can think about, right, if they're on the bottom of the sea star, when we're looking from above, like in this video right here, it looks like they're just kind of gliding like that, right? But what's actually happening is on the bottom of this sea star, all of those little tiny tube feet are taking a bunch of little steps just like that to help it move, right? So they have to use those tube feet to move, but they can also use them for a different reason. Oh, here's a really cool sea star called a sunflower sea star. This one definitely has way more than 5 arms. Do you see why it gets its name, the sunflower sea star? It kind of looks like a sunflower, right? These ones can have a lot of arms. And look at all of those tube feet. They look really, really crazy, right? It almost looks furry, but they're actually those tube feet to help it kind of move around. And sea stars can also use their tube feet for something else. When we were looking at that picture of the sea star from below, did you spot its mouth anywhere? Let's see. Let me move out of the way. Take a guess. Where do you think the mouth of the sea star might be? Do you think it's on the top? No, because we didn't see anything on the top, right, except for lots of colors and kind of some texture on it. Do you think it's at the tip of each arm? I don't really see anything that looks like a mouth there. But what about in the center right here? Do you kind of see that? It looks like maybe something could kind of be hiding in there. Let's see if we can take a closer look and see what might be in between all of the arms in the middle. Whoa! Check this out. This is another kind of sea star. And we're seeing a couple of things in action right now. First of all, we can see all of those tube feet, especially on the top right here, getting a really, really good grip on that glass, right? You can see those tube feet in action to help it hold on. But something looks really weird about the middle of the sea star. Is that where you thought the sea star's mouth might be? Well, if you did, then you would be correct. But in this picture, we're seeing a really weird adaptation that sea stars have when it comes to eating. So when we eat our food, what do? We have our food probably on a plate in front of us, right? And we use our hands, maybe a fork and knife or a spoon or something, to pick up a piece and put it in our mouth, and then we chew it up, and then we swallow it, and it goes down to our stomach that way, right? And then it gets digested, and it gives us energy. But our sea stars, they kind of do the reverse of that. So instead of putting the food in their mouth and then having it go down to their stomach to digest it, they actually spit their stomachs out of their mouth, digest their food outside of their body, and then once it's all digested, they bring everything back into their body. So when we're looking at this picture right now, we're actually seeing the sea star's stomach that is outside of its body. It has some food in it that it's digesting, and then once it's finished digesting, it'll bring all of it back into its body. Super weird, right? Imagine if you had an adaptation like that, and every time you sat down to eat dinner, you had to spit your stomach out of your mouth and digest all your food in front of you, and then you brought it back in. That would be super, super crazy, right? So that's a cool adaptation our sea stars have that helps them out. Even though they don't have bones, they can spit their stomach out. Do you even need bones if you can spit your stomach out of your body? I don't know. And our sea stars also, even though they don't have bones, that doesn't mean they're squishy, right? They actually kind of have like some hard plates, some kind of spiky parts on the outside of their body that protect them. So when we were looking at those pictures of the bat stars, I noticed that not only do they have a bunch of different colors, but they kind of have that texture on them. Do you notice, maybe see on this one, that kind of that bumpiness, kind of looks like scales almost? So if you ever visit the Aquarium of the Pacific, you can actually touch some sea stars for yourself, and you'll notice that they're kind of bumpy, and they have pretty much a hard part on the outside of their body to help them survive and to protect themselves. So even though they don't have any bones, they can still have some hard parts, right? They can still have something to give their body some protection and some structure. All right, so I want to talk about another animal that does not have any bones in its body. And this one is kind of in between, kind of has some things in similar with our sea star, but some things in similar with our jelly. So it has kind of that squishy body, but it kind of also has some arms like our sea star, but it has even more arms than our sea star. Remember, our sea star had 5 arms. This animal has 8. Do you know what animal I could be talking about? There it is behind me. What animal is this? Have you seen it before? Yeah, it's an octopus. This one in particular is a giant Pacific octopus. It's called that because it's a very, very large octopus that's found in the Pacific Ocean. And we can see all of those beautiful arms. Let's count and see if this one has 8 arms, just like I mentioned. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep, this octopus does have 8 arms, just like its name, octo, would imply. Octo means 8, right? So our octopus has 8 arms. And what do you notice that is covering the bottom of all of those arms? They kind of look like little circles or maybe like little donuts. But what are those? What could those be used for? Ooh, let's see. Here's a video of one of our octopus in action. What do you notice it doing? And we also get to see some sea stars on the glass too to kind of compare. Do you see any similarities between the sea stars on the glass and the octopus? Yeah, it kind of looks like they're using a similar adaptation, right? A similar body part to be able to stick to the glass. That's pretty cool, right? If we were swimming in an enclosure like this and we tried to stick onto the glass, would you be able to do it? No, right? We'd just slip right off. But our octopus has suction cups that are all up and down its arms. They allow it to grab on super well to the glass as it's swimming by. Check those out. Look at how beautiful those are. Now, octopus are actually really strong because of all these suction cups. They have hundreds of them all over their arms, and each of them can hold a few pounds. So between all the combined force of those suction cups, they can grab onto things, they can move around with them, but you'll also notice they can use them to eat. So our octopus can also do something really cool with their suction cups. When you eat your food and it goes into your mouth and on your tongue, what does your tongue do? It allows you to taste your food, right? Our tongue has a bunch of taste buds all over it so that we can enjoy our delicious food. Well, our octopus has the same thing, but on its suction cups. Here's a really good picture of them, nice and close up. So they can use their arms to taste their food, to explore and figure out what it is. And in fact, sometimes we'll use this with our octopuses here at the aquarium to our advantage, and we can give them like different food in each of their arms, and they have to try and figure out which one is their favorite, which one they want to eat, maybe which one they want to let go of, and they're being able to taste it and explore it with all of those suction cups. Now, as we're talking about the arms, I also want to mention something really cool about our octopus, and it's what makes it my favorite animal here at the aquarium. And it's that maybe when they were swimming around, you noticed that they can kind of move all their arms independently, right? Maybe we can look at that video again and see how it almost seems like each arm has a mind of its own. They all are moving maybe in different directions. They can kind of work together. They can all kind of move separately, do different stuff, help the octopus move around, explore things. And they actually do all have a mind of their own. Our octopus actually has 9 brains in its body. Pretty crazy, right? Because we only have 1. The octopus has 9. So let's do some math on that, right? They had 8 arms. So they have a brain for each arm, right? They've got 8 brains just to control each one of their arms. But we still have 1 brain left. What do you think the last brain might do? If you had 8 separate brains controlling all of your 8 arms, do you think you might need one kind of like central brain to be in charge and make sure that all the other ones are doing what they're supposed to be doing and help them work together? Yeah, right? It's kind of like maybe when you work in a team, you have someone who's kind of like your captain or your coach, right? That helps you to make sure everyone's on the same page and working together. So that's how our octopus brains work too. They have one central brain to kind of control everything, make sure all the rest of them are working together, and they have one that controls each arm. It's a super cool adaptation. And there actually is one hard part in our octopus. I mentioned it's a super, super squishy animal. You saw probably as it was moving around that it can kind of just be super squishy, squeeze through small areas. And the one hard part of the octopus is its mouth. Do you think you can spot where the mouth of the octopus is? Take a second and figure out where could the mouth be on this octopus? All right, did you find where you think the octopus's mouth is? If you thought that it was in the middle of all of its arms, you would be correct. And the mouth of the octopus actually looks really different. It's actually a beak. So we can switch over to my dot cam here, and I can show you kind of an example of what the beak would look like. So this one is from a squid, I believe, but a similar animal has a similar mouth. And check it out. Just like the name implies, when you hear a beak, you probably think of a bird, right? This looks like it could have come from a bird, but it's actually from an animal like an octopus. So it has two parts like that. They can take small bites of their food that way, and that's how they eat. They don't have any teeth in there, right? They don't have a mouth like us, or they don't spit their stomach out like a sea star or sting their food like a jelly. They use their little beak to take smaller bites of their food and eat it that way. And we were mentioning that the octopus is very, very squishy, has lots of soft, or the rest of its body is all soft. But that is the one hard part, their beak. So anything that the beak of the octopus can fit through, they can fit their entire body through. And this makes them kind of masters of escape. Ooh, here's a video, let's see, of our octopus here moving around. Did you notice something else happening in the video? Let's see, maybe when it restarts, we'll get a chance to look at it again. I want you to look at kind of the skin of the octopus and see if you notice anything changing. You can see it using those arms right now to move away. All right, so here's the beginning again. It's kind of a reddish color, kind of smooth. And then it turns a different color. How can that happen? How can an animal turn a different color? And why would it change colors? So it went from that kind of reddish color that we saw our giant Pacific octopus usually is, into kind of a more maybe white or gray color with kind of like some different spots on it. What does that help the octopus to do? Did you notice that when it changes colors, it kind of makes it disappear into the rocks and the sand, right? So we call this camouflage, when an animal is able to blend in with its environment, with its surroundings, just like our octopus is doing with the rocks, right? So octopus are actually masters of camouflage. They have these things on their skin called chromatophores that allow them to change their color. They can also change the texture of their skin. Look at this video here. We can see the octopus kind of making itself look spiky, right, to blend in with the coral reef. So they can use those chromatophores to change their color to help them blend in. Now, why do we think an octopus might want to blend in with its environment? Why would that be helpful? How could that be a good adaptation for an animal to have? What do you think? Yeah, right? It helps them to be able to hide. And what might an animal need to hide from? Yeah, exactly, right? Maybe from a predator, an animal that might want to eat our octopus. If it can blend in and camouflage, then it can hide from the predator and make it so that the predator can't find it, right? What about maybe to eat? Do you think it could be helpful for our octopus to camouflage, to blend in, and then you could sneak up on your food? Yeah, right, especially because our octopus are eating food that are maybe sometimes kind of fast, right? Or it could try and swim away like smaller fish or maybe some crabs or things that are kind of on that ocean floor, so they can maybe hide and use that to their advantage as well, right? So lots of cool adaptations that our octopus has as well. All right, so let's head back to our coastal corner and take one last look at our invertebrate friends, because we're at about the end of our program here. So we can take one last look here. We can see some beautiful sea stars. We can see some sea anemone, some sea cucumbers, some sea urchins. These are all invertebrates too. They look very different. They have different adaptations to help them survive. And they're all invertebrates, right? They all have no bones inside of their body. So today we got to explore a little bit about how even though if you don't have any bones in your body, there are lots of other ways that you can survive and adapt. We talked about our jelly being squishy but having stinging cells, our sea star being kind of bumpy and having those tube feet, and also our octopus which can camouflage, has a bunch of arms to help it, and a lot of brains that makes it pretty smart too, right? So thank you so much for joining us again today for our Aquarium Online Academy. We have another one at 10 o'clock on adaptations. So feel free to come join us and learn more about some other awesome adaptations that animals have. That's going to do it for our program on invertebrates today. Thank you so much for joining me, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day.